All right, so hopefully you guys have thought about your homework this weekend. And I told you to translate all of section 7, which I know is a big chunk. So I'm going to help you out. I'm going to post this video of me doing from the quibus down to the wetteram, I should say, which is the end of 7. So if you did the first half in class, then, you can watch this and check yourself because this is a little bit interesting. Basically, all of section 7 is one long indirect statement based off of the affirmie bond in the beginning. And I don't know where the Latin is, but you guys had it. So um there, it's at the beginning of 7 if you saw it here. So they affirmed, however, that this was. And that basically that whole verb is governing everything that you see in this and everything that we do in this. And you have to remember, he's not going to repeat it. He's just saying they're affirming that this is what they're doing. Um, so you're going to see that they make this affirmation to not do any evil. Okay, they come together on a certain day and they confirm that they're going to do good things. And then quibus practice, which I mentioned in the markups as something to note, that you have these two ablatives kind of at the beginning. And while there's not a comma there, maybe you'll notice that one is a pronoun, and maybe you'll notice that one kind of looks verby because practus from ago agere egi actus. That's just a good one to know. Um, because you're just going to see it all the time. It was on your high frequency vocab word list last year. I'm probably going to put it there again this year. Actually, I did. I put practice there. So, I mean, you just need to know it. And ago agere means to do or to make or to act. Per actus is like to have completed it. So when you have that, that's an ablative absolute. Okay, do you remember ablative absolutes? You have a noun plus a pronoun, or a noun or a pronoun, I should say, plus a participle. Okay, remember participles are verbal adjectives, and it equals an ablative absolute. And it starts at the beginning of a sentence. And when it is a perfect passive participle like this one, it is with the noun having been verbed. Okay, so with the noun having been verbed. And that's basically how you change it. And it always starts off at the beginning of a sentence, and it kind of like tells you when the rest of the subordinate clause is happening. So quibus, when you see a quibus, it's always a relative pronoun. It's obviously in the ablative. So with which things, I would just say with which things having been completed, which is that they got together, they sang hymns to Christ, and they did all these other things. So with which things, whoops, having been completed. So with which things having been completed, that's there. Okay, they affirmed that Fuisi, there was a delay for them of departing. And that's why this is so weird, because you're like, there's no verb. If you're looking at this and going, there's not a single conjugated verb in this, that's because there isn't a conjugated verb in this sentence. You have to go back to the first verb of the whole section, affirmie bond. So with these things converted, they affirmed, okay, you're still an indirect statement. Okay, remember, indirect statement is going to have, actually, let me throw it on this. Remember, indirect statement. I can't stress this enough. Indirect statement. You have your ding ding verb, which is also known as a head verb, which is also known as an Adam's apple verb, or above the shoulders verb, or however you want to call it. It's a ding ding verb, it's an accusative, and it's an infinitive. Okay, and as you're realizing, the Romans don't have to have necessarily all three pieces present in every single sentence. You kind of just like when you see an accusative infinitive together, you should think, oh, we're probably an indirect statement. And it is going to be a rough translation would be head verb. Okay, so they affirmed. In English, we added that. Okay, they affirmed that the accusative. Okay, and then you pick up the infinitive. But you don't translate the infinitive as to, you just translate it as a regular verb. So they affirmed that something is happening. Okay, and here we're going to look at that. Okay, they affirmed that a delay, fuisi, was for them of departing. I guess you could say there was a delay of departing for them. I don't really care how you do it. Okay. They affirm, go ahead and put that. They affirmed that there was a delay of departing for them understood. Oh no, actually the city is there. Okay. That's, by the way, a cool little dative of possession. See that when you have a dative like that plus a fuisi, that's a dative of possession. So the delay was theirs of departing. So for whatever reason, they got together first thing in the morning, they did all these things, and then they went away. Okay. And versusque and quende, and of coming together again. So, and that is again, sort of, again, they affirmed again that there was a coendi, like a coming together for them, Sibi. So, and and of, it's again in the genitive of coming together again. Okay, now why are they coming together again? Okay, they're coming together again here. Ad capiendum cubum. Remember, we talked about this. This is another type of purpose. We went over that last class. Whoa, purpose. Oh my gosh. Okay, I can't even do this right now. It's a purpose clause. Okay, purpose. Just go. So ad capiendum for the purpose or in order to literally seize food, but I think we could just say take up food. Um, you know. Okay, so again, to take up food. Um, so where are we? All right, sorry. Ad capienum, to take up food. Then you have this tamen, which is kind of annoying, but it just means however. Uh, promiscuum et innoxium. However, common and innocuous, harmless would probably be better there. To take up food, again, however, harmless and um common. Like, something, it wasn't like it was just a communal meal, is what he's saying. It was a harmless communal meal. Everybody got together and I don't know, like once upon a time, Sunday afternoons used to be for family, like lunches or dinners, and you'd have the whole family together. It's kind of what he's talking about. You just have this giant communal meal. Okay. Now again, okay, you notice there's a semicolon, so we can pick up here and notice again, we have all these infinitives and this direct object, these accusatives here. And when you see that, and again, with no real conjugated verb except, this wetiram way down here, I would go, you're still picking up that affirmé bond. And there isn't any good way to know that except that it doesn't make sense any other way. So they affirmed that this thing, ipsum, like this thing itself, that they, I guess you should do it this way, that they did ipsum, they did this, okay. Um, Let me see if I can make that a better. I've got to clean that up. Hold on, let me make that better. All right, there isn't really a good way to do this one. I'm gonna go to a new page. I need to get better post-it notes. Okay, but it's this quote. So they affirmed that quod ipsum, this thing which facere, they had done to have stopped. Like they had stopped. They were doing it, they stopped it. Okay. Um, this thing which they had done, they had stopped. All right, so they stopped it after my edict. An edict is like a decree or a law. Okay. After my edict. Okay. Quo. Um, for which secunda mandata to a following your mandate. And again, Trajan had just written a letter or made a formal mandate law. Okay. Uh, for which That's not really the best, but I'll clean it up. Following, following your mandate. Okay. I had forbidden Waturam is when you're going to do that. And I think there's a comma in here somewhere, but I think I marked over it. So, whoops. Okay. For which, following your mandate, I had forbidden. That's the Waturam. Okay, there's your main verb. I had forbidden. Okay. And again, we're still an indirect statement, only now we have a new head verb. Waturam. I had forbidden hatareas, which are political parties, by the way. So I had forbidden that political parties essay should be, basically. I had forbidden political parties to be. Um, to be formed, even just to be. Okay. So what had happened is, I think I said before, Trajan was discovering there were some problems in the provinces, especially with unrest and civil disobedience. And his solution to this was, let's just ban any group of people that wants to gather that's more than like four or five. And of course, that included any religious cult that wasn't a Roman religious cult. Okay. So the Christians said that they stopped gathering in groups when Trajan had forbidden it, which meant that Pliny had forbidden it. Okay, so that's where we are right now. And I think um, one thing I did read about this too is that this mention of Christ in here is the first mention of Christ in a Roman letter, which I think is interesting. Not in any letter, of course, but in an official Roman letter. Uh, I think this is also interesting to think of, excuse me, to sort of ask yourself, what is it that Pliny is telling us, and what are we learning about these early sort of, Christian gatherings? Okay, because remember, we're getting this sort of secondhand through Pliny. So we also have to look through the lens of, this is a Roman who obviously has no idea really what he's talking about, who the Christians were. Is he trying to understand what they're doing? Is he trying to find out if they're being, are they, should they be punished? Why should they be punished if they should be punished? Uh, do you think he really cares? Or is he just looking for a reason to get rid of a headache? I don't know. Good questions to ask yourself as you go through this. All right. If you're on a roll, I would go ahead and tackle eight because we're almost there. We only have 10 to do, and then we'll have a big old test on this. Okay. So make sure you're doing your reading. All right.